The 79th session of the United Nations General Assembly took place in the United Nations headquarters in New York on September 24th to 30th, 2024, under the theme Leaving No One Behind, Acting Together for the Advancement of Peace, Sustainable Development, and Human Dignity for Present and Future Generations. In his opening speech at the general debate of the 79th session of the United Nations General Assembly, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres remarked that our world is unstable and must change its unsustainable development. Also, Mr. Antonio Guterres emphasized the possibility of overcoming global challenges and called for peace across the world. During the general debate, high-level meetings and events, including the UN General Assembly High-Level Meeting for Antimicrobial Resistance, the High-Level Plenary Meeting to commemorate and promote the International Day for Total Elimination of Nuclear Weapons, the Annual Meeting of Ministers of Foreign Affairs of the Group 77, the Ministerial Meeting of the Non-Aligned Movement, and the Ministerial Meeting of the Foreign Ministers of Landlocked Developing Countries were held. President Kurulsuch has regularly participated in the general debate of the UN General Assembly since 2021. President of Mongolia Kurulsuch addressed the general debate of the 79th United Nations General Assembly on September 25, 2024. At the outset, I wish to convey my heartfelt congratulations to the President of the 79th session of the United Nations General Assembly, Your Excellency Mr. Philemon Young, and wish every success in the work of the session. Every time I participate in the General Assembly, I take pleasure in observing the sculpture entitled Consciousness, created by a renowned Mongolian artist, located in the garden of the UN headquarters. This sculpture evokes a deep sense of contemplation, reminding us of our responsibilities, consciousness, and dignity before the history of humankind and future generations. This deeply meaningful work symbolizes the historical moment when countries around the world adopted the UN 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the Paris Agreement on Climate Change. During my visit this year, the monument stood gloomily, as if demanding answers regarding the goals and commitments we've made for the future generations. Our lives are rapidly evolving and developing in an interdependent manner in this age of technological progress and digital advancement. However, tensions, armed conflicts, and wars continue to surge in many parts of the world, with geopolitical tensions rising due to prejudice, extreme ideologies, mistrust, misunderstanding, and disrespect. Mongolia believes that strengthening multilateral cooperation that respects international law and the UN Charter is the primary means to ensure international peace and security, with dialogue, mutual understanding, and trust as the foundations for peaceful and sustainable coexistence. Mongolia has always aimed to contribute to the international community's efforts for peace, security, and sustainable development. In this regard, Mongolia has established diplomatic relations with all member states of the United Nations and is committed to strengthening and developing friendly relations and cooperation with all countries around the globe. As a nation that consistently pursues a peaceful, open, independent, and multi-pillared foreign policy, Mongolia respects the pluralism that arises from the history, culture, civilization, religion, national interests and development paths of countries worldwide, and strives to develop international relations based on multi-pillar principles. For centuries, the Great Mongol Empire employed political and diplomatic methods, such as sending and receiving ambassadors and envoys, concluding agreements, fostering friendships, and seeking consensus in its relations with nations near and far, allies and adversaries as well, in order to resolve conflicts peacefully. It continues to be a cornerstone of Mongolia's foreign policy to date. Mongolia has made significant contributions to the elimination of nuclear threats by having its nuclear weapon-free status recognized on an international level. We reaffirm our commitment to continue pursuing and supporting nuclear weapon-free policies and initiatives. Mongolia calls upon all countries to collaborate in ensuring peace and stability, particularly in creating a world free from nuclear threats, and proposes the convening of a special gathering on this issue within the framework of the United Nations. Additionally, I'm pleased to announce that Mongolia, through its initiative, is preparing to ensure the implementation of the resolution adopted by the UN General Assembly declaring 2026 as the International Year of Rangelands and Pastoralists. We are also set to host the 17th Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification in Ulaanbaatar in 2026. Our country, with its unique location on the Central Asian Plateau, its harsh climate, and its status as a landlocked nation, has consistently paid special attention to the issues faced by countries in similar situations with common challenges, actively collaborating with them to protect our interests and make a tangible contribution to amplifying our voices on the global stage. Mongolia, in partnership with Austria, co-chaired the preparatory committee preparing for the third United Nations Conference of Landlocked Developing Countries for 2023 to 2024 and successfully facilitated discussions on the draft outcome document among member states. We are pleased that the draft of the action program to be adopted at the upcoming conference in Botswana in December includes innovative content outlining specific goals and measures to guide the development of the LLDCs over the next decade. Therefore, we urge all landlocked developing countries, transit countries, and all UN member states and development partners to engage at the highest level at the third UN Conference on LLDCs and to discuss proposals creatively for the successful implementation of the action program. The General Assembly of the United Nations is the most important and honorable platform for spreading the voice of ideas and aspirations for world peace, security, welfare, and development of mankind. Mongolia has consistently supported the efforts of member states to reform the UN Security Council into a more equitable, accessible, transparent, effective, democratic, and responsible system. We also strongly support the further strengthening of the United Nations' central role and coordination in global affairs. Our country believes that any international challenges and misunderstandings should be addressed through mutual understanding, mutual trust, mutual respect, and dialogue, and should be resolved within the framework of international legal norms. Therefore, I call on you, heads of state and government, and distinguished delegates, to demonstrate exceptional leadership and make a meaningful contribution to strengthening trust, mutual respect, and cooperation among the nations of the world in the vital work of achieving world peace, security, sustainable development, and the well-being of the humanity. May the eternal blue sky bless us with peace across the world. On the sidelines of the 79th session of the United Nations General Assembly, President of Mongolia Khural Sukhukhna received President of the International Committee of the Red Cross, Mirjana Spoljaric-Egger, on September 24, 2024. At the outset of the meeting, President of Mongolia Khural Sukhukhna congratulated the ICRC on the 75th anniversary of the adoption of the Geneva Conventions, the foundational treaties in international humanitarian law. President Khural Sukh also emphasized the crucial role of the ICRC's leadership, prompt assistance, and coordination of humanitarian aid. The two sides highlighted that cooperation between Mongolia and the ICRC has notably strengthened over the years, enhancing humanitarian aid efforts and fostering the understanding and importance of international humanitarian law. The two parties also exchanged views on the initiative to establish an ICRC warehouse in Northeast Asia based in Mongolia, aimed at supporting the ICRC's humanitarian operations. President Khural Sukhukhna expressed gratitude to the ICRC's participation in the World Women's Forum, which was successfully held in Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia, on August 22nd to 23rd, 2024. President Khural Sukh also extended an invitation to Ms. Mirjana Spoljaric-Egger to visit Mongolia at her convenience. Also, on September 25th, President of Mongolia Khural Sukhukhna received Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Spain, Pedro Sanchez. At the meeting, President Khural Sukh expressed willingness to develop mutually beneficial cooperation in all areas with the Kingdom of Spain, Mongolia's third neighbor and a member of the European Union. The two sides exchanged views on enriching bilateral relations with concrete economic and trade contents and on possibilities to accelerate bilateral cooperation between the two countries through high-level visits. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez expressed commitment to expanding and deepening relations and cooperation between Mongolia and the Kingdom of Spain in all areas, intensifying talks and negotiations, and implementing high-level visits. Furthermore, Premier Pedro Sanchez noted that as a member of the European Union, Spain is ready to help intensify Mongolia's relations with the European Union and serve as a bridge connecting Mongolia with other European Union member states. The two sides affirmed mutual commitment to strengthening Mongolia-Spain traditional cooperation within the framework of the United Nations and other international organizations. On September 26, President of Mongolia Khurelsukh met with the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres. At the meeting, President of Mongolia Khurelsukh touched upon Mongolia's initiatives and proposals for resolving challenges faced by the international community, ensuring the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals, combating climate change, supporting peacekeeping operations, and promoting gender equality. President Khurelsukh expressed gratitude to the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres for the UN's consistent support to Mongolia. President Khurelsukh informed that Mongolia successfully hosted the World Women's Forum and Ulaanbaatar Dialogue on Northeast Asian Security in Ulaanbaatar, the capital city of Mongolia, and expressed commitment to strengthening relations and cooperation between Mongolia and the UN in all areas. UN Secretary Antonio Guterres highlighted the 17th Conference of the Parties to the UN Convention to Combat Desertification, which Mongolia will host in 2026. Mr. Antonio Guterres noted that he highly appreciates Mongolia's contribution to solving regional and international issues. The UN Secretary-General underscored that he is proud of Mongolia's successful implementation of its multi-pillar, peace-loving and open foreign policy, as well as its development of balanced and intensive relations and cooperation with its two eternal neighbors and other countries of the world. Emphasizing that Mongolia is a crucial member of the United Nations and the international community, serving as a bridge of mutual understanding and mutual trust between the countries of its region, UN Secretary Antonio Guterres expressed the UN's commitment to deepening and strengthening its cooperation with Mongolia. Mr. Antonio Guterres recalled the hospitality and warm welcome he received during his visit to Mongolia in 2022 and extended sincere greetings to the people of Mongolia. The UN Secretary-General affirmed the United Nations commitment with its system organizations to support the government of Mongolia in its efforts to achieve sustainable development goals and advance the country's development.